Hello, this is Keir from XenForo. Welcome back to the Building with XenForo video series. In this video we're going to start off by fixing an error that I made in the previous video, and then we're going to take a look at how to add tagging to your content, which is really quite straightforward. Let's start off with that error. You'll notice that the entity content type field for all of these things takes the form of add-on name and then a colon and then the name of the entity. But when we look at the entity type field that we did for DemoPadNote, we use the fully qualified class name, and that's nonsense. We're going to change that now, because if we don't, it will break our tagging system. So let's save that out. It should now be the entity class is demo/pad, being the name of the add-on, colon, note. To begin our journey with tagging, we're going to start off here in the note entity. And the very first thing we've got to do is define a field in the database that is going to store the cached version of our tags. So here we are in our columns for the note entity, and we're going to add a new column. It's going to be called tags, funnily enough, and it's going to be a type of self JSON array, because it's going to be storing an array stored as a JSON string. It's going to have a default of nothing, and that's actually it. We'll leave that there. The really important stuff comes from the taggable behavior. So we're going to take the reactable behavior here and add a new one called taggable. So we're going to go taggable, which is going to use the taggable entity trait, or whatever it's called, and the state field again is going to be the message state. Just make sure that that's properly functioned. So we know that we've got a message state which defines whether it's visible or not. Taggable is going to use basically the same thing. And the final thing that we need to do in the entity at this point is we need to define a relationship to the tags. So let's go ahead and do an XF entity relation. We're going to relate it to tags, and the entity that we're going to be pointing to is entity tag content, and the type is self to many, because each one of these notes can have as many tags as you want. And then we get into the conditions. Now this is where it gets a little bit more complicated, so I'm going to get rid of this suggested string and open up an array instead, because the way that the tag content structure works is that all tags for all content types are stored in the same table, but they have a particular content type field that defines what the content type is, and then a content ID field that is related to the primary ID for the content that's being tagged. So let's set that up. Each one of these is going to be an array in its own right. So we want a content type, and the content type is going to equal, we're basically writing out a where clause as array items here, and the content type is DemoPadNote, that being what we defined up here. And then we need a content ID, which is going to equal, and this is a little strange, but this is just the syntax that we use, the note ID. And that even though that won't evaluate to anything, that dollar there tells it that we actually want to go and grab this thing. So finally, we're just going to say that the key on that is tag ID, and we're basically done there. So to make the tag handler, we're first of all going to have to tell the system where to find it. So it's back to our content types again, and we're going to add a new content type to DemoPadNote, and this time the field is going to be tag handler class, and this time we want DemoPad entity, not that at all actually, is it? DemoPad tag note. So we're going to be creating that in a moment. So having created that, we'll just save that out, and then let's just go and take a look at the other taggable content that is there, namely threads, and just make sure that what we've put there agrees with the sort of format there. Tag handler class is XF tag thread, so we've used DemoPad tag thread, this is all good. So now let's go and actually create the class. So we'll come into here and in the pad folder, create a new directory called tag, and within that we will create a new PHP class called note, and it's going to extend the abstract handler for XFTag. Let's do that. I'm not going to add that to Git, and you can see that because we have extended the abstract tag handler, it's given us a bunch of methods that we need to complete. Let's take a look at filling in the contents of these methods, and we'll start off with some simple ones. So it's asking us to return the content date for the entity. Well, that's fairly straightforward, isn't it? Because we know that, let's just pull this across so that we've got both on screen. We know that our entity has a post date, so all we've got to do is return, oh dear, return the entity post date. Now we're going to get a wiggly line here because it doesn't know what we're talking about. It's just using a generic entity here. So let's add some PHP doc to help us out as much as it, and we will tell it that the entity that we're passing in here is actually a demo pad entity note, and now the wiggly line disappears. It knows what we're talking about. So let's move on to getContentVisibility. Well, again, this is easy because we've got a message state that has the option of visible, and if the message state is visible, then the content is visible. So we will just return a little conditional here, return entity message state equals visible. Let's put that PHP doc in there as well because we've got wiggly lines, and well, I'm not sure why that's still wiggly, but that will work. getTemplateData. Okay, well, this is to find out how this is going to work, we actually need to go and see another example of the abstract tag handler. So let's use my little gadget here to go up and see what other things use it. Let's have a thread. getTemplateData, you can see that it is asking for the thread, namely the entity that it actually is, and some options. So let's grab hold of that. Let's not remove it though, shall we? Let's grab hold of that and come in here and adapt it to our own needs. So obviously we don't want a thread, we want a note, but the options is coming through from the method parameters, so that's fine. We'll just leave that as is. The note is the entity, so that one's done. The next method we need to deal with is getPermissionsFromContext, and again we're going to have to go and look at some reference material for this one. So let's head back up to the abstract and come down to the thread, and we can see that in here, first of all, we're determining what kind of entity we're dealing with, and then we come down to these permission checks, and you can see here we've even got some edit tags checks. So that's the kind of thing that we are going to need to build. But the most important thing to grab from this particular method is what it returns, and that is this stuff here. It's looking for an edit permission, a remove others permission, and a min total. So let's put those in here, and then we'll talk about what those mean. Edit refers to whether or not you can edit the visitor can edit the current note that is being inspected. Remove others refers to whether or not you can remove tags that other people have attached, and min total refers to the minimum number of tags that are valid on a particular piece of content. So I'm not going to bother with remove others. I'm just going to say that no, nobody can do that. And on min total, I'm going to say that 0 tags is valid. So I'm just going to leave that at 0, which only really leaves us having to implement this edit permission. And once I've shown you how to do this, then you can go ahead and do new permissions for the remove others version if you want to. But for now, let's head back to the entity and implement edit. So let's call it canEditTags maybe. So it would just be returning entity canEditTags. So back to the entity, and remember we need to implement a canEditOwn and canEditOthers, I think, because we want to have separate permissions for whether or not someone can tag their own content and whether they can tag someone else's. And thankfully we've got a method already written that does something very similar. This canDelete has a permission check for deleteOwn and deleteAny. So let's use that, copy it, paste it down here and rename it to canEditTags. And then I think what would probably make sense here would be to have something like editOwn tags and editAny tags. And then we'll edit those error messages. You may not tag this note, and you may not tag this note. Again, just to make note, I am using plain strings here, but best practice would suggest that you should go and make phrases for those and then call the phrases instead. But as we've already done phrasing in this series, I'm just going to use plain strings. You can do it how you want to, but obviously if you want language independence, then go with the phrase system. Of course, with the code done, we've now got to go and actually create these permissions. So let's head back to the admin control panel and permission definitions, and let's head all the way down to demo scratchpad notepad, add permissions. It's going to be part of the notes group. The permission ID is going to be whatever we called it, editOwn tags. editOwn tags, and we will just give it a number of 41 because I noticed as we were coming in that the most recent permission was 31, so I've just added another 10 onto that. And now we need to do the same for notes editAny tags. editAny tags, and this will be 42, and we're done. Let's just go to the user group system and check that those are working properly. Down at the bottom it's going to be, isn't it? There they are. That's working fine. So the next thing to do, I guess, is to go and actually put some stuff onto the front-end interface so that we can start working with tags. So let's start off with our trusty old demo pad note template. Here it is, and let's also familiarize ourselves with what it looks like on the front end. So we'll head into notes, and I think it would be useful to have the tags just appear next to the date there. So let's go and do that. Let's close this stuff down so we've got some room. So here's the date. No, it's not there. It is there. So we want to put our tags right about here. So let's go get them. The best way to do that is going to be to go and copy the code from somewhere else. So I happen to know that the thread view template has an implementation of the tag list. So let's go to thread view and pull that up. And here it is, in fact. So we'll just have this whole macro call here, and we'll dump it into there. Now we're going to need to adapt it a bit because obviously it's using the thread system at the moment. So the first argument is the tags. That's going to come out of the note entity, so it's not thread tags anymore, it is note tags. Then we've got an argument for the tag list. This is actually a CSS selector, and the reason why it's important to have that is because when you save tags, it's actually going to dynamically update the tag list on the page without having to do any kind of full page refresh. So each content item's tag list has to be uniquely identified, and we'll use a CSS class for that. So in this case, we're using tag list --thread --thread ID. So we can adapt that. Let's have that and say that all of those instances of thread are now note. So it's now tag list note ID, which will work fine. Finally, we need an edit link. And by the looks of it, what this is doing is it's saying that if you can edit tags, then create a link. Otherwise, don't create anything at all. So it would just be a static tag, I assume. So let's change this to note canEditTags, because that's what we called it. Change the link root to where it should be, which is notes tags, and then the content thingy is note. Now that reminds me that there is one more piece of PHP that we're going to need to write, but let's go and see what this looks like first of all, and then the absence of that will make itself known. So in here and refresh, and two arguments to canEditTags. What did we do wrong? canEditTags. We didn't make a default, which means we probably didn't do it for canDelete either, did we? So there's a bug. Let's fix that. Better. Okay, so here we are. Now, as you can see, I've already implemented this system and I'm currently just reverse engineering it. And I've forgotten to take out these 3 tags that I've already put in. But that's okay, because that's going to help us with some of the stuff that we want to do now. So right now, as you can see, I've got no pointer over that Mr. Spammer's tags thing. But when I hover over mine, I haven't got one on mine either. And the reason for that, I assume, is that because I don't have permission. So let's go in and say, yes, I can edit my own tags. Let's come back and refresh and see if that makes any difference. Yeah, now I've got a pointer, but I shouldn't have one over there. That's good. Let's give him permission for both of those and see if that resolved that. So refresh again. Got an edit link, and I've got an edit link. Okay, so now let's see what happens if I try to edit them, remembering what I said just now. Oh dear, invalid action on demopad note, no action tags. Well, no, there isn't an action tags because we haven't created one yet. So we need the note controller, which is this one. Let's have a look at the thread controller and see how they do it. In the controller, there it is. Right, action tags should be in here somewhere, I expect. Here we go. Right, asserted the viewable thread, can edit tags, no permission, blah 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 blah. Setting up a tagger, and then we're going to. Right, this is a lot more complicated than we actually need. So let's try and distill this down a little. So let's start off with public function action tags, and we do want the parameter bag with params in there so that we can get a friendly linked note. And then, as usual, we're going to assert that the note exists. So note equals this assert note exists based on the params note ID. So that will halt the system completely if we don't have the note that's been specified, or if we haven't specified a note, in fact. Now we need to go and get the tagger, which you can see up here. And it's the same tagger for everything, but the tagger will also call up the tag handler for the particular content type. So let's say that the tagger equals this service, because the tagger is a service, and the service is xf::tag changer, and then we need to pass it a content type, which in this instance is demopad note, which has come from the content type here. And then we need to pass it the note itself, so in it goes. Now let's help ourselves out a little here with some PHP doc, because when we call this service, your IDE won't know what that means unless it's really, really clever. The tagger is in fact an XF service tag changer. there is also a merger in there, but we'll deal with that another time. So what do we have to do with this now? I guess the first thing to do would be to save tags if we've got any. So let's put in something for that. So if this is post, meaning it's come as a post request from a form submission, then do that. Otherwise, we're going to need to return the form that will allow us to edit the tags. So let's work on that first, and then we'll come back to saving the tags afterwards. So we need to get a list of the tags that are currently in use, both globally and on the note itself. And we'll use the tagger to get that. So it's tagger get existing tags. There you are. Get existing tags by editability, and then that gives us everything we need in terms of the tags that are available. Now the tags are divided into two groups in XenForo. There is editable tags and uneditable tags, and they're both returned as properties of the output of this method. So let's work with those in our view params. So we're going to say view params equals, first of all, we're going to need to pass back our note, obviously, but then we need to pass back editable tags, and that's going to be tags editable, and we need to bring back our uneditable tags. That is, funnily enough, tags uneditable. Now, thankfully, we've actually got that that note back here that has some tags on it, so we're going to be able to test this actually working. So let's finish this off with a view that's going to render out the form. So return this view, and we'll use the standard naming system here. So it's demo/pad : note / tags, and then we're going to need to write a template to handle the tag editor. So we'll call this demo pad note tags, and finally we'll pass in our view params. So obviously, with the caveat that that is completely empty and currently won't do anything, we're ready to edit to render our form. So let's go make a form. Let's, as usual, go and take one that already exists and adapt it. So I expect it's going to be something like thread tags. Is that an edit form? It is. Oh, and look at this. It even comes with a macro. So we'll just grab hold of all of that, and then we will go and make a new template. So styles. No, I don't want that. I want templates. Add a template. It's going to be a public template, and we call it demo pad note tags. I'm just going to paste that in there. We've already got edit tags set in there. This thread get breadcrumbs thing is redundant for us at the moment. Okay, let's take a look at this. The action is threads tags. Well, we've just been working on that. That's now notes tags and note. Uneditable and editable tags, we've passed in our view params over here, so that's good. The minimum tags is that's going to come from, no, let's just say that it's 0 because we know it is. We might be able to pass that in dynamically from somewhere else, but I'm going to ignore that for now. And then the tag list, which we talked about earlier on when we were working with the demo pad note, which is over here, and we called it tag list note ID. So obviously we're not in a proper IDE here, so I'm going to have to do some typing. So this is note, and that's note, and that's note. Theoretically, that should be it. Let's save that out. Oh, look, I've already used it. You're just going to have to trust me that that really is me creating it. Let's go and take a look at the one I actually made. Demo pad note tags. There it is. Looks exactly the same as what we did just now. So pretend you didn't see that, and we'll carry on. So Let's head over here, hit refresh just in case there's anything sitting in the background, and let's see if we can edit them. Click edit, there we go. Edit tags 1, 2 and 3, bearing in mind that we won't be able to hit save yet. Let's try on this one, no tags. Let's see if editing some tags works. 3, 4, 5, fantastic. And then if I hit save, it's going to blow up. So let's go and do something about the actual save action. So back to the controller. We need this isPost thing. And we're going to use the tagger to set the tags that exist after we've worked with them, and then redirect back to the main page. So let's say tagger set editable tags, and then we want to pass it a tag list. The tag list is actually going to be the value of this input, which, even though it's not a standard input, it will return through JavaScript magic a form-like field string. So let's use our normal way of getting a form field string, which is this filter. The name of the field is tags, and it's a string. And then let's check to see if the tagger has any errors from what it's been given. So if tagger has errors, then what should we do? We will return this error, and we'll get the tagger's errors into there. So if we set tags that are invalid, or it doesn't like it for whatever reason, it will halt execution and return the standard error view along with the errors that the tagger produces. This is good. And then, assuming that we don't have any errors, then I guess we can just tell the tagger to save. And let's take that off. So just a straightforward save, and then we will redirect. So let's do a dynamic redirect back to where we came from. So return this redirect, and let's put this on multiple lines. This get dynamic redirect to this build link to notes and note. So we've got 3, 4, 5 in here. Let's save it, and it worked. Fantastic. Let's go see if we can add 1, 2, 3. If we try to click on one of these tags, it's going to give us an error page because we haven't implemented anything for that. So let's have a look at the error, because it could be quite useful. And it's telling us that it hasn't got a template called search result demo pad note. So perhaps all we need to do is go and create that template. Let's go take a look. I don't know why I'm saying this as if I don't know. That is all we have to do. But I'm actually going to go a little further than that, because we have been namespacing all of our templates with demo pad something. And if I go and take a look at the actual abstract tag controller, which I think is where this code is defined, which is back here. Let's go back to the abstract handler. You can see that we have getTemplate. There we are. There's a function called getTemplateName, and what that gives us is it returns public search result and then the content type. So that's why when we clicked on this, it was saying public search result and then the content type of our entity. That's not going to let us do a template with demo pad as the prefix. So let's override that in our own tag handler, and then we can give it any template name we like. So let's call it return demo pad. What was it expecting? Search result. Demo pad underscore search result. So if I hit refresh on this now, it should say, no, you need provide a type. No, oh yes, needs to be type and name. Let's try that again. Right, so it says we need a demo pad search result. So let's go make that demo pad search result. And I'm going to edit this in the IDE. So let's come out of that. Demo pad search result. There it is. And as usual, I'm going to copy code that exists from elsewhere. So let's go and find another search result that we can plagiarize. We've got search result page. So pages are a relatively simple construct. Let's see if we can work something from that. Let's have that HTML and plop it in there. And what can we do? We've got an avatar with a null user, and that's because pages don't have an author. So let's change that to the note.user, because we have a user attached to our note. And then it's looking for a link to the content. So let's change that to notes and note. And then it's doing a highlight. This highlight will highlight a particular term within another string. So let's use note title and options term. Some of this stuff is to do with full text searching rather than tag searching, but that's something we will probably come back to later on in another video. But for now, let's just fill this stuff in so that we can get a search result. And now it wants to do a snippet. So lots of this stuff is more complicated for pages. So let's do something nice and simple for our notes. We need to just refer back to the entity. It was called content, our content row. So we're just going to snippet the note.content. 300 characters is fine. We don't actually need to strip HTML because there shouldn't be any. And what else do we need? We've got a phrase of page. Well, let's just say note and see what that does. Page modified date. Well, I think that would be more appropriate to have note post date. And this is let's see, it's a list in line with the bullet. So that's fairly standard. So let's put in a list of the tags as well. So we'll have another list element and we'll use another macro. I think we've got one called simple list. So let's just go take a look at tag macros. That would be better, wouldn't it? Right, edit rows, edit form, list. There we have got simple list. So let's just take the definition for that one and go plug it in. So I'll stick it in there, making sure that that's self-closing so that we don't expect any content. I need to tell it what template that's coming from. That is from tag macros : simple list. Right, so the tags that we're passing in are the note tags, and the container class is maybe we don't need anything. Let's try leaving it with nothing and see what happens. Nothing should be fine. And the highlight term, I think we need to reference our options array here, which should carry through options.tag if we've come through a tag search. And if we've got one of those, use it. Otherwise, then use options term, being a full text search. Done that fairly blind, but let's go see if it actually works. So back here and say refresh. Fingers crossed. Look at that. We've now got a search result with our one thing. So let's go back and we've got 1, 2, maybe just 2 posts tagged with 1. Oh, there was 3. So we've got a search result based on tagging, and we should also be able to go to the tag cloud and pick up any one of those and get results from that. So I think you'll find that for a relatively small amount of coding effort here, adding tagging to your content types is really worthwhile and produces quite a lot of functionality. So until next time, happy coding.